Hi guys, lesson 13 is all about buffer stocks and pollution permits. So buffer stocks are an intervention system that aim to limit the fluctuations of the price of a particular commodity. A commodity is a type of raw material that can be traded, such as oil, gold, wheat, and cotton. These agricultural commodities have a lot of fluctuations in price because these products are very sensitive to changes in weather conditions, which are unpredictable and uncontrollable. The government try and intervene to reduce these price fluctuations. So the graph for buffer stocks starts off with drawing the demand and supply curve. We draw supply as inelastic because it is challenging for farmers to rapidly increase the quantity of wheat or cotton in response to a change in demand. And the demand curve is also drawn as relatively inelastic as it is not very responsive to a change in price. This makes sense, as if the price of bread fell, it would not mean that people would necessarily go out and purchase more bread. Remember, demand comes from companies who require commodities such as wheat to produce bread, and supply comes from farmers who produce the wheat. When farmers have a good harvest, there is plenty of stock, and supply increases to supply curve 2. We know when supply shifts to the right, this would cause price to fall to price point 2. To stop the price from falling and keep the price at price point 1, which was the initial equilibrium price, the government buys the surplus quantity, which is from point Q1 to Q2. And this now forms a part of the buffer stock. And when the harvest is poor, perhaps due to unpredictable weather conditions, supply would actually shift to the left. And we know when supply shifts to the left, this causes price to increase. To maintain the price at price point 1 and increase supply, the government can now sell the commodities which it previously bought from the buffer stock. This would shift the curve back to supply curve 1 and keep the price at price point 1. Finally, let's take a quick look at tradable pollution permits. So what happens is the government actually creates a market for pollution permits. So each company would be able to purchase a permit allowing them to produce a certain amount of pollution per year. For example, say company A was allowed to produce 200 units of CO2 per year, but they only use 50% of this permit. Now imagine company B was permitted to produce 100 units of CO2 and they have used up this limit, so they actually require more permits. Company A can sell its 100 units of CO2 which was left over to company B, or company B can choose to buy more permits from the government. So what we can see is there is a market created for pollution permits in the hope to deter firms from producing too much pollution. And it's another way the government can raise revenue to fund public services. Let's summarize. So buffer stocks are used to stabilize the price of commodities. During a good harvest, the government purchases the surplus quantity, and during a bad harvest, it can sell this quantity to reduce the shortage. Pollution permits are used as an incentive for firms to produce less pollution and generate revenue.